Hi, everybody. Can you all hear me? Chat, can you hear me? Um, Scott Bressler, thank you. Thank you. Scott Bressler, who is a coworker of mine and who has a lot of meetings where I sit face to face across from him. So this is kind of like a standard Tuesday event for the two of us. Um, so, hi, everybody. I launched a book today. Um, this is a proof copy, but Gleam Upon the Waves is now out. It's available on paperback and on ebook. It is on paperback, I know, at Amazon and Barnes and Noble, and it'll probably be available at most retailers over the next few days. It usually takes a little bit of time to propagate. Totally new system than when the last time I published, which was like 4 years ago. So like trying to figure all that out has been fun. But we are live finally, and I am very excited to be bringing the fourth story of the Bell Forging cycle to everybody. Please bear with me and we were scrambling. Carlisa was very gracious to allow me to test before this because we were having some really crazy Wi-Fi issues, which isn't really conducive to streaming. So now I'm hardwired in, so it should be nice and clear. And I think that will solve a lot of the issues that I was running into right before we started everything. So, yeah, thanks everybody for tuning in. I put this for an hour. We'll see how it goes. If people have questions in the chat, we can get to those a little later. I want to do a reading, obviously. I also will, show off some of the new swag. I was going to do a giveaway. I'm still not sure how that's going to work out. I might make it up as I go along. You might have to email me. Actually, where did it go? Aha, yeah. Let me show you what one of the items that I will be giving away. So yeah, we're making this up as we go along. I have had this Bell Caravans hat. It's still in plastic for a while. It was something I was going to try to come up with, like as a product, and it just didn't work for me. It wasn't the right size, and I couldn't find a way to do it in a way that would have been affordable. It would have either been really expensive, or I would have had to have a gross of hats in my office, and I already have a lot of stuff in my office, so I didn't need that. So this will be one of the things somebody gets to have, a one of a kind. And then I have some other stuff. Obviously, Gleam Upon the Waves books, and then maybe just a full set and the hat. Maybe that's what we'll do, like a whole package. Book 4, it's out. It's available to purchase. Thank you all the people that have purchased it. Thank you people who have shared it online, who have talked to their friends about it, who have wrote reviews in the past, all that sort of stuff. It is very much appreciated. I have been asked by multiple people now. My friend Brittany and my friend Steve have asked me what cocktail choice am I supposed to pair with this book, because that's now apparently a thing that that we do now with readings. So thanks, King County Library. So I have two options, actually. I think the two best options would be to go for something kind of on the brinier, saltier side. So I would recommend a dry martini, your choice of vodka or gin. I prefer gin, with at least 2 olives, so you can, maybe even a little dirty, so you can get that little bit kind of briny, salty flavor into your martini. The other option, which is a little more expensive and not everybody is going to drop the money on it, would be Dram of Talisker, which is a single malt scotch from the island of Skye, and it's very sea essence. So either of those two would be the recommendation that I would pair with this, I guess, book, because it's kind of nautical themed. So you might as well kind of stick with like the nautical sort of, brininess of it. So that is the cocktail pairing. And I guess going forward, I'm going to have to come up with a cocktail pairing for anytime I do one of these, a reading. We'll keep it at a reading. Dead Drop Live is something that I want to kind of continue. I thought it'd be fun to do it on Tuesday nights in the afternoons. 6 to 7 is kind of where I'm at, but I'm flexible. If anybody has feedback, let me know. I think it'd be really interesting to I'd like to show you guys how I go about making a map with my brush sets, and B, I think it'd be really interesting to kind of show how I've been making those old haunt videos. So I think both those both those would be kind of a fun thing to do. And then maybe even do some sort of like group writing session. So if somebody is interested in, in writing alongside me, maybe that's something we can do here as well. So if, Dead Drop Live is something that we are all appreciative of, then we'll keep doing it. So yeah. Thanks everybody. I'm waiting until about 6:10 before I dive right into a reading. So I'm just feeling I'm filling this out as I go along. So, so I always plan 3 bookmarks. This time I'm not, I don't have my 3rd bookmark to show you. It's still kind of a work in progress. Carlisa has this like giant commercial laser now, and we want to do a really cool kind of laser cut bookmark that's top secret. Only the people that on the stream are getting to hear about that. And we're still trying to figure out the best way to do that with like a printer and all that sort of stuff. So a few people have kind of seen some template stuff that I'm doing. I'm excited about it, but it's not out. If you buy a book like a signed book from me when I get them in my store, I will be shipping the 3rd bookmark in a separate envelope after they actually arrive and they get assembled. So that's something else that's happening as well. So yeah, we'll actually, you know what? Let's just start, since I wanted to give people time, because a lot of people here aren't used to streamers. I'm not used to streamers. This isn't something I watch very often. I watch a few friends, but that's about it. And even then, it's not like I'm tuning in at exactly the start. So I'm just kind of feeling it out. Stickers. You guys can all see the stickers. You can see like high resolution versions on my site. Obviously the title sticker over here. Effergomon Brewing, which is a reference to a Clark Ashton Smith story. The Gamble, which, once you start reading the books, you'll understand. And this Weight Corporation seal, which I think is very cool. So those are the new stickers, and they're in full color. I know my Instagram feed is black and white, and there's kind of a black and white theme on my blog, but I do make color things. I'm not totally scared of color. I also have political buttons. I can't really see that one. This is the more with Magnus, who is the new mayor of Lovat. Now, this is really, I'm not spoiling anything. Like, you're going to find this out within the first few chapters. There's a new mayor, and you can have your little political button, more with Magnus, and the seal of Lovat there at the top. These are kind of pretty standard for me. The Gleam, just the title stickers. You can kind of see the cool ink stuff going on there. I really like those new backs. So those are the Gleam Upon the Waves stickers. And then Gamble Ticket. And I do spot gloss on all my bookmarks, so you can kind of see how parts of it are shiny and parts of it aren't. It's kind of hard to tell there. But yeah, Gamble Ticket, a little messed up, similar backing, but yeah. So those are the 2 bookmarks, and yeah, that's the swag for this time around. The 3rd bookmark to be revealed later, once I actually get it in. So let me wet my. So yeah, hooray! It's out. Finally, I'm really excited. Tonight I'm going to be reading chapter 4. I will give it a little bit of a preface before we dive in. I normally don't do that. Normally, when I do a reading, just read the prologue because I don't want to spoil anything. But too bad. It's only 4 chapters in. It's not that much of a spoiler. It's actually one of my favorite chapters in the book. It's one that I kind of envisioned even back when I was writing Red Lit and World. I am really excited to share it with you. I think you guys will be very interested in where the story goes. There's a few beta readers already in the chat that I've seen, so they already know where the story goes. But those of you that are fresh to this book in the series are I think will be pretty surprised. There's a little I'm not tying up every loose end, but because there's 2 more books coming. So, but things are moving in very interesting ways. So, with that said, since we're coming up on 15 minutes, I will jump right in to chapter 4. So, the preface for chapter 4. Waldo and the crew of the Bell Caravans have taken a job working for the mayor. That job is going to send them to the capital of Victory, the city of Empress, which isn't super far from the city of Lovat. I mean, it's far enough, but that there's a travel time in between. But it's not something that is like next door. They're not walking to it. So this is shortly after he's had a meeting, had some events have happened. He's having visions again, which is something that's kind of been ramping up since Old Broken Road. Wall is still trying to figure all that out, still pining after lost love and, Waldo Bell stuff. Just wants quiet time by himself, folks. So yeah, chapter 4. Contemplating the future, I stared down at the waters below from an open perch on the edge of level 4. It was evening now, a clear night. From this high up, the sea below had a softness. Moonlight glinted on the evening's waves, 1,000 sparkling diamonds rolling against the black canvas, reflecting multitudes of indescribable colors. Black rainbow waves I'd soon be riding upon. The overlook was a familiar place to me. A bench, an open view, a burned-out sign that once advertised denim overalls. It was the border of Edgewater, a warren on level 4, and one of the few not crowded by windowed apartments trying to grasp at those ephemeral million-lira Levantine views. The air might not be so fresh these days, but you could breathe free here, and see the sky and feel real wind against your skin. I had stood here before in darker memories, after my confrontation with Ashton, in happier ones. I was half drunk and smoking with Essie after being threatened by a faux assassin named Argentum. Oddly, that had been a good night. It had ended in Essie's bed, and the pair of us had found a bit of comfort in each other. That felt like a long time ago. Before Ashton, before Elephant, before the riots, before Essie had disappeared. A piece of me still pined for her. I worried over where she had gone. She had been afraid. Argentum had masqueraded as a collector. His whole shtick had been a ruse to finagle lira out of me, but I hadn't found that out until later, when I had told her about him. It had frightened her. Her voice still echoed in my head. You can't stay here. You can't bring these people here. You shouldn't have come here. She kicked me out, then disappeared, left her job, maybe the city. I had considered looking for her, but then thought better of it. Still, I always hoped to see her come out of a storefront or emerge around a corner. It's a fool's hope. In a city this large with this many people, it's easy to hide. It's easy to be forgotten. A cold breeze blew in off the water. It stank, as all the wind did these days. I wrinkled my nose against it, tried to push it out of my mind. It's been said that you can get used to any smell. Whoever said that hadn't smelled something like this before. It wasn't that it was foul. I could handle foulness. It was that it had changed. Some days it would be acidic and sharp, and the next it would be base and pungent. But it was always there, always reminding you of its existence. It was persistent. My kef, the scarf that we caravanners carry, was back at my apartment where it did me no good. I would have to bear the brunt of the stink until I returned. I made a mental note not to leave it behind again. Winsome had been pouring peppermint oil over his, said it kept the smell mostly at bay. It was a good idea. I made a mental note to ask him where I could get peppermint oil. Gripping the rails, I leaned over the edge and tried to catch a wisp of fresh air. The motion allowed me an excellent view, and I glowered down at the bay, nestled in the curving hook of Lovat between the city proper and the warren of West Lovat. The Gamble, my right Empress, floated far below in the largest vessel in a bay filled with all manner of patched-together craft. It was a bright festival of lights. Noise and music rose from its decks, audible even this high up. A cavalcade of colored bulbs danced and flashed as they reflected off the bulkhead and the water surrounding it. A fleet of small boats swarmed around it like cleaner fish, ferrying goods and people back and forth from the city's wharves. Enormous in scale, it looked less like a ship and more like a part of Lovat that had broken free and set itself adrift. The city in miniature. It looked blocks long, but it couldn't be more than a single level high, and I had heard that it contained 7 or 8 cramped decks, each about the height of a tall marrow. Stairwells, ramps, causeways, catwalks connected each. Corridors wormed their way through atriums, stalls, nightclubs, taverns, restaurants, and homes that were smaller than my studio flat. A knot of wood and steel. If Lovat was cramped, then the Gamble was claustrophobic. It was built around 3 ancient ferries from the pre-aligning days. Eons old by all accounts, set end to end. I doubted much of the original structure remained. So much had been replaced and patched that whatever floated in its place was more homage than anything genuinely historic. One of the tugs that dragged the monstrosity back and forth between Lovat and Empress bobbed near the bow of the first boat, with another amidship and a third near the aft. All 3 were running silent this evening. I'd never been on board, never had the capital or the desire, but I'd heard stories. The casino trade was the primary moneymaker for the Gamble, hence her name. High rollers from every level would find their way to her decks and play high-stakes games or waste liras playing pachinko in cramped parlors. It was strange to imagine sitting on that vessel for a week solid. Carter's cross. I hope I wouldn't get sick. I doubted a rotor like me would do well on the water. I checked my watch, 20 minutes late. He was supposed to be here by now. Typical. This was a power play, or an attempt at one. Not that it mattered much to me. He had so little influence now. It was sad watching him hungrily grasp after anything resembling power. Still, it'd be his fault if the food was cold. I was the one doing him the favor. No one else knew about this, and I wasn't sure how to tell them. It was easier to keep our meetings clandestine, away from places my friends frequented. What could I say if Samantha or Hannah found out? Distantly, I could hear the drone of a monochrome talking head rumbling through late-night news. Somewhere, a couple sang old jazz hymns, their drunken voices muffled. Further off, yet one more LPD siren wailed. The bumping rhythm of bass-heavy music was a faraway heartbeat. Closer were always present sounds, the endless drip of water, the buzz of lights, the hums of machines, the rumble of pipes, all combining to form the quiet din of a Lovat night. At last there were footsteps on the pavement. "You're late," I said, without turning. A non-committal grunt, half dismissive. "We agreed midnight," I said, finally turning around. Yeah. He had once looked young, but that, like everything else, felt distance. Now he was frail and withered, face marked with age spots, his hair thinned, wrinkled starburst around his bulging eyes, and emanated from the corners of his too wide, inhuman mouth. Folds danced across his forehead in a mimicry of the waves below. The clothes he wore were plain and simple, earth tones mainly, thin at the elbows and the knees, dirty. I had found them for him in a second-hand store. The shoes on his feet had holes near the toes. I had no idea how he procured those. Charity, perhaps. Theft, potentially. Though he wasn't the type to take risks, especially for a pair of worn-out shoes. There was a time I'd have commented on his sour sweat stench, but the whole city smelled rotten, and in comparison to that, he was almost fresh. "I've heard your name at meetings," Ashton said. "You should be careful." He waggled his index and middle finger at me. He wasn't really Ashton. Not the Ashton I had faced. Not wholly. He was human, or as human as a first could get. This wretched little creature was nothing more than a severed avatar of a titan, a walking carcass left to wander a city he hated. His old form had died, leaving him behind, lost and adrift. I had found him several weeks earlier playing a one-sided game of checkers in a park with a Merrill pitch addict. It had been an odd reunion. I didn't hate him. That was the odd thing to say about a man you watch murder people, but was it him? You could argue that the Ashton standing before me was just a tool, the knife, not the hand that wielded it, a costume, not the actor inside. In this state, he was pitiful, sad. If anything, I felt a little sorry for him. He was trapped. There was no way out. Lovett didn't care about what you were. The city only cares about what you are and how you can be used. A city devours. Its survival urbanized. The worthless are discarded and replaced. Ashton was now a part of that cycle. He had no job, no source of income. He had no skills, and our fight had ruined the body he had inhabited. Lovett had no use for that. He had tried to find a congregation of those wayward souls who worshipped him as a first, but you can imagine how that went. How many lunatics have claimed to be a returned deity? It's not exactly an uncommon scenario, and his followers reacted as you'd expect. He still attended, though. Maybe it made him feel connected to something. Maybe he got a bit of charity. I'm not sure. You stirred up my followers. He waggled his fingers at me again. Followers? My eyebrows rose. I made a point to gaze over his shoulder, as if I spotted a column of devotees behind him. You have to have followers, you actually need to be followed. Ashton looked over his shoulder, grunted, and then turned back, frowning slightly. You know what I mean. I handed him a small paper bag stained with grease spots and some coffee in a paper cup. I had picked up both before coming here. He took them, mumbled a thank you before settling on a nearby bench. He set the bag beside him and took a sip from the coffee. Lukewarm, he said. You're nearly half an hour late, Ash. Monorail was late. Right, I said. It was, he said. What's this? He rolled the brown paper bag back and peered inside. Within the bag were several orders of kikiam, ground shrimp tossed with spices and wrapped with sheets of bean curd before being deep fried. They're delicious. Ashton tucked into them immediately, using his fingers to pluck them out of the bag. We stayed that way for a while, him eating and drinking his coffee, me looking out over the water. These are good. I love them, I said, scratching my beard. I was keeping it closely trimmed these days, which meant it was itchier than when I had let it grow wild. They're best fresh. A murmur, barely a response. Next time I'll bring you pierogi. Thanks, he said. Sincerity had leaked into his voice, pushing away the snide attitude. I stood, still leaning against the rail, staring down at the gamble as Ashton ate in silence behind me. Life is weird. I ran through explaining this to any of my friends and it drew only a blank. Out of any of them, Sam might be willing to come around. Reunified priestesses were all about charity and kindness. Then again, she had been with me in the Shangdi Tower. Finally, I broke the silence and broached the reason I'd asked him here. I've been going back. Back? Returning, traveling, I don't know what to call it, to the wasteland. Ashton wiped his hands on his shirt and looked up at me from the bench. Same wasteland we stood on together? The wasteland? I didn't like what that implied. Were there others? Multitudes? Yes, I think. And no, it's different now. I smell sulfur and ash. I see a figure in sweat-stained robes, yellow robes, wearing a blank mask with a single hole. That's new. It was there with you, but in the distance and blurry. Now it's there, you know? Present. It's been trying to tell me something. Him. Ashton considered himself for a moment. Screw him. He's a son of a bitch. He's a rat bastard. Only his shadow lingers there, a ghost. A damn ghost. He swore like someone who just learned to swear. Odd for a man who was once a creature so old you could consider it removed from time. Ashton wasn't looking at me. Why? I asked. He didn't respond, just returned to eating. How much do you remember? I said, from before. He thought about this, his eyes narrowing. Enough, but at the same time not enough. I had access to knowledge that I know is unknowable now. A sneer. Not that you would understand. You told me to look west before, and warned me. He is coming. Did you look west? He gestured with his chin towards the distant aisles. I'm going west. I'm leaving the city for a few days on the gamble. I want to know what look west means. Ashton laughed. A weird eldritch tittering that started at the back of his throat. It rose as he continued to laugh, holding his belly and rocking on the bench. His eyes leaked tears. You're riding the waves? Now? Oh, Waldo. You fool. The king tide is only here so long, and then it will retreat. What's out there? I demanded. You haven't figured it out yet? Help me figure it out, damn it. It took Ashton a few moments before he stopped laughing. Oh, Wall. Just because you ply me with food doesn't mean I'll betray my people, my family, for you. Even if I wanted to, this body won't let me. You're a man of two worlds now, Guardian. That might not be easy to comprehend, but you'll either figure it out or go mad in the process. I sighed. You have to give me something, Ash. A bunch of gibberish isn't going to help me. Ashton smirked. You remember what I told you I was before? The herald, I said. Indeed, the herald. A messenger. I've had other duties at other times, but here and now I am, or was, a messenger. He gave me a side-eyed glance. No one is ready for what's to come. This city isn't ready. The flock isn't ready. My followers aren't ready. Even that piss-stained pretender who visits you in the wasteland cannot stop what's coming. He moves his pawns, he wins his small battles, proclaims victory, but the war was decided long before he tried to interfere. We, he scowled, no, they, have had a few setbacks, but everything is on course now. What does he want to stop? The high priest, Ashton said, as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. He balled up the paper bag, rose, walked to the edge to stand next to me. I know you smell his perfume. Everyone smells it. That's the fragrance of a corpse city, sealed away for eons, but the seal broke and the king tide carried the smell here. It flickers, in and out, the way he flickers. But eventually the flickering stops. Eventually the flame burns whole and bright. He'll remain. Not much time left. Tick-tock, tick-tock. Ashton inhaled deeply and patted his chest with his long hands. He smiled a too-wide smile with his too-wide mouth. It had a Renin quality. I can never say that word right. To it, like he was part Anner. What are you talking about? His mouth turned into a wide, almost manic smile that showed rows of stained teeth. Then he pitched the crumpled paper bag over the edge and watched it fall, wincing slightly as it bounced off the extended arm of a crane and dropped somewhere below unseen. You're the guardian, Waldo Bell. You'll figure it out. He turned and walked away, sipping his coffee, giving a wave of his hand. Thanks for the kikium. That's chapter 4. Yeah, and where it goes from there, you'll just have to find out yourself. I always like the idea of Wall revisiting of a I guess for lack of a better, a villain of a sort, or a character that was, basically working opposite of him. And Ashton seemed to be kind of the perfect situation with what happened at the end of Red Lit World. So him kind of coming back and being this kind of herald again, I thought is a good, solid kind of entry into kind of where the story goes from there. So that is my reading tonight from Chapter 4 of Gleam Upon the Waves, which you can, of course, get in online retailers and ebooks are everywhere. Indie bookshops should be able to also get them. If they can't do it now, they should be able to in a week or so. So, I hope everybody enjoyed it. Anybody have any questions? There's always a little bit of a delay between chat and streaming. I think there's a way to change that, but I'm new to this, so I don't know. So, I'll I'll see your questions as they come through. Yeah, I meant to talk about the sounds in the background. I hope they weren't too loud. Nothing can ever be perfect. We have a contractor here, and he's finishing up some work that we had not expected on our house. We had some rot that we had to get rid of before we put these windows in, which we didn't expect to replace. And it just happened that today, after I had planned all this, so I hope the sounds weren't too loud. I can't really hear them through these headphones. I can kind of hear what my mic picks up, but I'm never sure. So I apologize for, there's lots of food. There's lots of food. In fact, actually, I went and found, hi, Sarah. I found there's more food in this one than there is in Red Lit World, which, there's a food shortage. So there was less food in Red Lit World. So there's more food in this. There you go. There's your kikium recipe. You can watch that guy make it and you can make it yourself. You're going to need bean curd. I think he uses pork and shrimp and then a bunch of veggies and spices, and you toss them and fry them, and they're delicious. So recommend it. Um, let me look through here. I'm letting you. I'm glad you're stoked, Deb Alexander. That's my mom, everybody. Argentum is how I say Argentum. Um, it's there's it's not, you can say it however you want. It's a name, and I'm sure he would have a different way to pronounce it, but I usually just say it Argentum. The series is not finished. There is 2 more books coming, and it, I'm sorry if that was confusing. Yeah, there's 2 more books. If this is the end of the series, you're not going to be happy with me. So, you'll have to ask me that question 2 books from now, and hopefully it won't be 8 years. I've already started writing book 5, so hopefully that's not a thing that is going to happen. So that is, yeah. Sorry, I saw a post today from who I believe is asking the question, and I was like, oh, that's a really lovely post, but this isn't really the last book, but that's okay. Yeah, it's Brittany. So Brittany was the one who she posted thinking that this was the last book, but it is not. There will be 2 more. It will be a 6-book series. Will I be putting out any non-Belforgine books before book 5? I don't know. Maybe. I mean, we'll see. I'd like to try. I have a couple manuscripts that I'd like to try to sell to a publisher. So I might be, that can change. They're in various states of disrepair. But we'll kind of see how all that goes. Part of the reason this took so long, some of you may know, some may not, is I wrote a 250,000 word Weird West fantasy book called Coalbelly, in between Gleam Upon the Waves and Red Lit World. And I would really like to get that out. It's kind of a book that I've been working on. I'm still working on it, although not as I've mainly, last year I really focused on Gleam Upon the Waves as much as you can during a pandemic with everything going on. Somehow thanks to some good editors, I managed to put it all together. So, conventions. Yes, I'm excited for conventions. I have no idea when they start up again. I do know I somehow missed the note. But apparently, Norwestcon is all online this year. I didn't even realize it was happening online, which is really great. Online conventions are pretty cool. I was actually just at another one previously, just online, which are pretty easy to I don't have to wear pants. I can sit in front of my screen and just talk about horror novels. So it's pretty easy to do. I think we'll probably start seeing conventions probably the latter half of the year. I know that's my dog barking in the background. Just if that's what you're hearing, that's what's going on. I know that Emerald City and a few other ones are shooting for like December, so maybe. And yeah, I would love to actually be at a convention with a new book. That was one of the reasons I kind of held back. So yeah, I'm excited for conventions again, and I am, as soon as I can get my shot, I'm gonna be there with books. So I hope you're there too. Yeah. So there's a third to that. Architects and gardeners. So just in case you're not paying attention to the chat, architects versus gardeners. Do I plan it out, or am I letting the story surprise me? I know beats. So, but it's not fully planned the way some of my, like the first, like Old Broken Road and Stars Are Right were both, like I had outlines and stuff for them. Red Lit World and Gleam Upon the Waves, I kind of had beats and filled in stuff in between. The third, which is something that I'm starting to kind of experiment with a little bit, and I have with other stuff, is it's called excavators. And this is a term that Carlisa told me about. One second here. I have a post on it on my blog. So Carlisa went to a reading with Erin Morgenstern for her book The Starless Sea, and she describes herself as an excavator, which is somebody that just kind of writes down a path and kind of discovers along the way if that is right for the story or not. So you end up throwing a lot of work away, but you end up writing a lot of really interesting stuff. So I always thought that's really kind of interesting, and I do tend to do that. I think there's probably, this book is the longest of the series. It's like 104,000 words. It's over an inch thick, which is quite, like when you see it on a shelf, you can kind of see it back there next to everything. It's like, it's like 50 pages. I'm actually charging more for it because it's more expensive to print because it's at least 50 pages longer. So, I find that I'm throwing away 70,000 words even for a book like this. And a lot of it is just scenes that don't work out or a chapter that just isn't going the right direction. So you end up just kind of shedding that sort of stuff. Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at now, is I'm kind of in this kind of mix. I kind of like knowing kind of major beats of where I'm going with the story, but then kind of discovering the sort of fun adventures that happen along the way. So, yeah. Any other questions? I think what I'm going to do, I'll get to that question in a second. I think what I'm going to do, as far as giveaway stuff, is I'm going to just kind of have an entry thing on my blog, and anybody can go enter, and I'll just do a drawing. I really wanted to do something here, but like trying to find a service that I knew would work and figure it out, I kind of threw all this together last minute. So follow my blog. That's where the giveaway stuff will happen. I know I lured people here with giveaways. I think most of you were going to come and listen to the story anyways. But if you're here just for giveaways, you can report me and complain, and that's okay. It just happens. Lovat's post-apocalyptic omelets, are they shaped unconsciously or consciously by climate change at all? They're shaped very consciously by climate change. Although I've always kind of purported that Lovat is thousands of years after any reality we would regard as an actual reality. But time's funky, and so are the machinations of the first. So I think there's enough room there to play with. But the archipelago that Lovat is built upon is essentially me figuring out the math of sea level rise, and then kind of working with that. Same thing with kind of the broader aspects of the territories. It's kind of a post climate change in some level. It's not like there's enough time that's passed that like it's not this wasteland necessarily, or this like creeping desert. Like we're seeing kind of a change, partially because most of the population at a certain point was wiped out, and humanity was left in this kind of very small kind of group that kind of had to come together, which kind of gets hinted on a little bit in The Stars Are Right, and like the reunifieds and all that sort of stuff. So the answer is yes, it's shaped consciously by climate change, but there's enough stuff that has happened that it's not something that like gets discussed directly within the books. There's a reason why the lower part of Lovat's underwater. It was a city that they built on top of, and then most of that city is submerged. I've had questions. I'm just going to address the questions that I've had just about book stuff. I'm getting signed copies in my store. Should be early April. They changed everything, so I couldn't order them ahead of time and have them waiting in my store like I did before. So now I had to actually hit publish on the book, and then it's like an app store where you just kind of wait for Apple or Amazon to give you the thumbs up or the thumbs down. And then once that happens, then I can go order. So I order the same time everybody else does. So I'll get my copies that I can then sign and sell through my store. So those are all coming. And I will have book sets. I know some people have asked about that. They're great questions. Like, I understand. Yeah, we're going to have those. And book sets are going to come with all the swag. Hopefully the third bookmark will be done by then. And then if not, you'll get a second package from me wherever you live with your lone bookmark in it looking all creepy. So, yeah. I have, I might do some short story stuff. I'm not going to show you my maps yet. You're going to have to wait for those. I, somebody asked about, am I going to release anything in between that's not Bell Forging Cycle related? I might release some Bell Forging Cycle short stories. They'll probably be free, and I most likely will post them on my blog first, and I'll post in all the social media channels when they're up there and doing that sort of stuff. So that is something else that might be coming as well. I've been working on a few things while I was editing, because a lot of times editing is like, hurry up and wait. I'm like, okay, I did all these changes, hand it to the editor, and then they go and do their editing thing, and then you're like, what now? So I wrote short stories. So I have 2 done. If you tuned into the reading I did for the King County Library, and I realize not everybody, like some people are scattered all over the place, but one of those is one of the short stories that I worked on for. Yeah. So, yeah. 6:44. Remember, because a lot of people have asked me about all the terminology and stuff, there is now a glossary on my blog. If you go up to my books and go to reader resources, you can find the glossary. It'll have, it's a living document, so I will kind of keep adding to it. I like the idea of having something that just kind of expands with the series in one place than trying to print them and then reprint a book every time there's some new entry to a glossary. So it lives on there. When the series is done, which is 2 books from now, just a reminder, 2 books. When the series is done, I will probably have a reprint. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. Yeah, that's a very good idea. I might do another run or a reprint where I have the final glossary that you can't ask to add anything more into. But we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. That's a long ways away. I still got to write 2 books. Okay, I'll do a food glossary as well. I'm going to, my website's going to slowly just turn into like one of those cooking websites where I'll just tell you a story before I give you the recipe, and I'll be like, hey, so today we're going to talk about the veggie pakoras that was mentioned in this chapter, and then I'm going to tell you this whole story about the veggie pakora, and you're going to have to scroll through a bunch of ads, and then eventually I'll give you like the ingredient list, but not tell you what to do with it. So, do I miss the redwood? Cedric's to me is not the redwood, although it's maybe more 13 coins, especially with the high backed booths. And also just a little bit of like Hopper Noir. Like, it wasn't really me channeling redwood necessarily. It was me just channeling kind of classic diner. We don't have a ton of those. Like 13 coins is kind of the closest, which like kind of dinery sort of places. Although the new one's like kind of like weird, extra fancy diner versus, I don't know what it was before. The one over by, for those that know, it would have been over by the old Sale Times space, which I had been in like once because I wasn't a reporter. So I didn't go there very often. So yeah, that is that's kind of the where SEDS was born. Okay, I'll get it. Recipes. All right. My food blog. My food blog. You can hear the pounding of hammers. But we're going to be done soon, and then maybe when the next time we do a stream, there won't be the sound of hammers behind me. I think I'm going to, I mean, there's still a bunch of people on here. I'm going to end a little early. If there's any other questions, feel free to like ask any questions. If not, I think I'm just going to end. Thank you all for showing up and listening to me read chapter 4 from Upon the Waves. Shout out to my mom and my nephew who have made themselves known here as well. Hey guys. My in-laws, Pat and Carol, who the book's dedicated to, are, I believe, also tuning in. And then all my friends. You guys all rule. And I really appreciate your support. And I really appreciate everybody's excitement. And I hope you enjoy Gleam Upon the Waves. How can you help get the word out about the Bell Forging Cycle? Tell your friends. Leave reviews. Tell your friends. And buy books for people as gifts. Post on social media. Share. Like, I mean, word of mouth is the big driver for a lot of this stuff. And I can only, advertise so much. And it really comes down to, like, you tend to gravitate towards what other readers really like. And so the more you share that sort of stuff with, I love you, Derek. The more you share that stuff with friends and family, I think the more impact it can have. It's much more appealing to take a recommendation from someone you know than strangers. Although, there's people I follow who I trust that I also get book recommendations from. But that really helps a lot. And every time somebody, like, it just spreads that, it kind of spreads the word a little bit further. So, yeah. Please tell your friends and leave reviews. Reviews also help me get into special email lists that I can then send to even more people. So, like Amazon, I know it's a pain in the butt, but it's worth leaving a review there. But also Goodreads. So both those are pretty powerful, just from an indie perspective. But if you know book bloggers, like, let them know too. So those are always helpful as well. So, yeah. All right, everybody. Thanks for tuning in to Dead Drop Live. I hope it was entertaining. I appreciate everybody, as I said. Thank you again for all your support. I hope those of you that pick up Gleam Upon the Waves love it. I'll keep writing books. Keep reading them. Thanks again, everybody. Have a wonderful evening.